Like most of you watching this video, I generally start my day by having some breakfast, having a tea, and then reading the news to just stay up to date with what's happening in the world.
A Ukrainian passenger jet plane has crashed.
A massive explosion has torn through the Lebanese capital.
Turkey has been struck by a powerful earthquake.
Is it just me, or is it getting crazier out there?
And seeing all this, it really makes you think that, damn, the world really sucks. Unless...
Fake news. Fake news. Fake news. Fake news. It's all fake news.
Okay, maybe not fake news, but definitely inaccurate. And not necessarily inaccurate in the way they are portrayed by the media, which is a whole new video on its own, but in the way that our brain interprets those news. After seeing news of child abductions and terrorist attacks and all those sorts of things, our perception of these events get completely skewed. And as people, we start judging the likability of these events happening much greater than it actually is. So at this point you might ask yourself, okay, fair enough, but why does this matter? What difference does it really make? The reason why this is important is because this kind of information will influence how we make decisions and how we eventually behave. To put it simply, this circle represents the things that are happening in the world right now. This red circle represents the things that are presented on the news. And this is us believing that we know how things are most of the time because of the information that's been fed to us. And now that I have mentioned the availability bias, what exactly is it? This bias has been described as a mental shortcut which relies on immediate examples that come to mind when you're trying to think about a specific topic, a specific decision that you need to make, or a specific method or concept. It operates on the notion that if something can be recalled, it means that it's important. In simple words, availability bias just states that we remember information that's more recent and stands out, and because we remember it, we think is more important than it actually is, or we think it happens more often than it actually does. Okay, so the bias influences how you perceive information and how you utilize it and the importance of it. But what about domains in which it's very, very important to be accurate? Does it impact those people that work, for example, in healthcare or work in finance, where they need to make a decision and could save someone's life? Or if they make a decision, they might lose £1 million. In a past study within healthcare, researchers have asked participants to read different profiles of fictional patients from different demographics and different gender. Each one of these patients have shown symptoms for a specific disease. However, those symptoms would apply for various different diseases. And once each participant has read each individual profile, they've been asked to indicate which disease they believe they had. And here is where it becomes interesting. Consistent with the availability heuristic, either the more common influenza or the very highly publicized AIDS was chosen as a disease for most people. What's interesting about it is that AIDS was chosen even if the symptoms a lot of the times were misdiagnosed, while some other disease such as leukemia would have been a better fit. What this simple study shows is that even experts and doctors are influenced by availability heuristic, and when they have to make a decision, they will rely on information that is more highly publicized or more common. And lastly, I would like to talk about an example within the financial market. Investors are using availability heuristic to make decisions all the time. And many times they make errors in making their decisions because of it. In a past study, investors were asked to complete a survey on how they believe the S&P 500 will perform in 2009, 2010, and 2011. And this was done straight after the crisis in 2008. 66% of respondents stated that the market would either stay flat or go down in 2009. 48% stayed the same about 2010, and 53% stated the same about 2011. In reality, the S&P 500 showed a return of 26% in 2009, 15% in 2010, and 2.6% in 2011. What this means is that the availability heuristic has created these lingering perceptions of negativity, which has impacted decisions years after the actual economic crisis, meaning that these painful past events are still impacting their decision making years and years later. So what can you do to combat the availability bias when you need to make an important decision? The very first step is to be aware that it actually exists. And this is easier said than done because these biases by nature, they are utilized when we are not really thinking about things, and it helps us make quicker decisions. However, a simple way of looking at it is that whenever you need to estimate something and when you need to make a decision, very likely that decision will be based on quite limited information that you have read about or seen in the news. And the simple way of dealing with this is by Googling it and finding some very quick up-to-date statistics, which will help you make a more accurate judgment. The second thing that you can do is setting higher standards for yourself when you need need to make a decision and when you need to think about something. And the way to do this is by always being a bit suspicious about the information that you're being provided and that you're utilizing, especially if that information comes from a friend or comes from the media, which means that it's something that you perceive as being accurate. And lastly, a simple way of diminishing the effect of the availability bias is by utilizing the knowledge of others to make decisions. Allow others to bring in perspectives that are different from yours, because that will help you to see a certain thing from a variety of different points of view. Remember, their views are likely to be biased, but then again, so are yours. So hopefully by having a good discussion with them, you can get a more accurate picture of the events, or at least entice you to do further research in order to make a more accurate decision. Before I wrap up this video, I just want to mention that there's quite a few papers in the description, so if you want to read a bit more about the things I've discussed throughout this video, feel free to check them out. Thank you for sitting with me until the very end of the video. It really means a lot to me. If you do enjoy this type of content, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you on the next one.